As Finn and his companions entered the dark passageway, the stone gate behind them rumbled shut, sealing them inside the ancient temple. The air was thick with the scent of earth and damp stone, and their footsteps echoed in the vast, shadowy hall. The only light came from faintly glowing runes etched into the walls, pulsing with a soft, greenish hue that seemed to guide them forward. Finn held the Stone of Tides tightly in his hand, feeling its cool energy as he glanced at his friends. Eric's sword was drawn, ready for anything, while Tilly hovered close to Finn, her wings flickering with nervous energy. Rusty padded quietly alongside them, his ears perked and alert. "The trial of Earth," Finn muttered under his breath. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together." After walking deeper into the passage, the tunnel opened into a vast cavern, its ceiling towering high above. In the center of the cavern stood an enormous stone altar, its surface adorned with ancient symbols. Surrounding the altar were 4 towering stone statues, each one a giant, their arms crossed over their chests as if standing in eternal vigilance. As they approached the altar, the ground trembled slightly, and the statues' eyes began to glow with the same green light as the runes. Slowly, one of the statues came to life, stepping down from its pedestal with a thunderous crash that shook the entire cavern. The giant statue, now moving like a living being, towered over them. Its stone face was expressionless, but its eyes gleamed with an ancient intelligence. The other 3 statues remained still, as if waiting for something. "Welcome, challengers," the statue rumbled, its voice deep and resonant. "You have come to claim the Stone of Earth, but only those who prove themselves worthy may do so. You must pass the trial of Earth. Are you prepared?" Finn nodded, though his heart was racing. "We're ready." The statue's glowing eyes narrowed. "The trial of Earth tests not only your strength but your connection to the world itself. You will face 3 challenges: strength, patience, and wisdom. Only by succeeding in all 3 will you earn the right to possess the stone." With that, the statue raised its massive hand and pointed to a large stone door on the far side of the cavern. "Enter the Chamber of Strength," it said. "Your first challenge awaits." Finn, Eric, Tilly, and Rusty exchanged determined glances before making their way to the door. As they passed through, the door rumbled shut behind them, and they found themselves in a smaller chamber filled with jagged rocks and boulders. Suddenly, the floor beneath them began to shake, and from the ground, massive stone golems began to rise. These golems, made entirely of rock and earth, had glowing green eyes just like the statues. They lumbered toward the group, their heavy footsteps causing the ground to tremble. "The trial of strength," Eric muttered, gripping his sword tightly. "Looks like we're in for a fight." The first golem charged toward them, swinging its massive stone arm with crushing force. Eric met the blow head-on, his sword clashing against the golem's rocky fist with a loud clang. Though his strength was formidable, the golem was relentless, pushing him back with each strike. Finn summoned the power of the Stone of Winds, calling forth a gust of air to knock one of the golems off balance. But the creatures were made of solid earth, heavy and immovable. Even the strongest winds could barely budge them. Tilly darted through the air, using her small size to her advantage as she distracted the golems with quick, darting attacks. Meanwhile, Rusty weaved between the golems' legs, barking and biting at their ankles to trip them up. But despite their efforts, the golems kept coming, and their sheer size and strength made them difficult to defeat. "We need to find their weakness," Finn shouted, dodging a massive stone fist that crashed down where he'd just been standing. Eric, breathing heavily, parried another blow. "Golems are creatures of the earth. Maybe we can use that against them." Finn's mind raced. If the golems were connected to the earth, then perhaps. He closed his eyes and focused on the Stone of Tides. Though the stone was tied to water, it was also tied to the earth through the cycle of nature. Finn felt the connection between the 2 elements: the flow of water through soil, the way rivers shaped mountains over centuries. Slowly, he raised his hand and called upon the stone's power. A surge of energy pulsed through him, and with a shout, he slammed his hand to the ground. Water erupted from the earth beneath the golems, washing over their feet and legs. As the water soaked into the stone of their bodies, the golems began to slow, their movements becoming sluggish and heavy. "That's it," Tilly shouted, flitting above Finn's head. waters weakening them. With renewed determination, Finn, Eric, and Tilly pressed the attack. The water continued to flow, turning the ground beneath the golems into mud. Their once solid forms began to crumble as the earth beneath them gave way. Finally, with a loud crash, the last golem fell, its body dissolving into a pile of rubble. Panting and covered in dirt, Finn looked around at the defeated golems. We did it, the trial of strength. But there was no time to rest. The door at the far end of the chamber opened, revealing the path to the next challenge. The trial of patience, Tilly said, her voice tinged with uncertainty. I wonder what that could be. They made their way into the next chamber, which was vastly different from the first. Instead of rocks and boulders, the room was filled with vines and plants, growing thick and tangled across the floor. In the center of the chamber stood a massive tree, its branches reaching toward the ceiling like ancient, gnarled hands. As soon as they stepped inside, the vines began to move, twisting and curling toward them like living snakes. The trial of patience, the statue's voice echoed from above. To overcome this challenge, you must move forward with care. Impatience will only lead to failure. Finn frowned, watching as the vines continued to grow, blocking their path. We can't just hack through these, he said, glancing at Eric's sword. We'll need to find another way. The vines were creeping toward them slowly, but steadily. They had to move carefully, or risk being caught in their grasp. This is about timing, Finn realized. We have to wait for the right moment to move. Carefully, the group began to navigate the chamber, watching the vines and timing their steps to avoid being entangled. Finn could feel the tension building in his chest as they moved slowly, inching forward through the twisting maze of plants. It was a challenge unlike any they had faced before, requiring not strength, but patience and precision. At one point, Tilly nearly got caught in the vines, but Finn grabbed her just in time, pulling her back before the plants could ensnare her. After what felt like an eternity, they finally reached the base of the massive tree. There, nestled in the roots, was a small stone pedestal, glowing faintly with green light. Finn touched the pedestal, and the vines immediately receded, opening the way forward. The trial of patience, Eric said, letting out a breath of relief. That was harder than I expected. They moved on to the final chamber, where the trial of wisdom awaited them. The room was simple, with a single stone table in the center. Upon the table were 4 objects: a seed, a stone, a flame, and a gust of wind trapped in a glass jar. The trial of wisdom, the statue's voice boomed. Choose the element that will bring life to the earth. Finn stared at the objects, his mind racing. The seed represented growth, the stone represented stability, the flame could bring warmth, and the wind could spread life. But which one was the key to the earth's power? He thought about everything they had learned so far: the elements, the balance between them, and the power of nature. Slowly, he reached for the seed and placed it in the center of the table. The room rumbled, and the stone pedestal in the corner of the room began to glow. The door at the far end opened, revealing the stone of earth resting on a pedestal of its own. You have passed the trial of earth, the statue said. Take the stone, and may you use it wisely. Finn approached the stone of earth, feeling its power resonate through the room. With trembling hands, he lifted it from the pedestal, feeling its heavy weight in his palms. They had done it. The final stone was theirs. Now, with all 4 stones united, their journey to restore balance to the world could finally begin. But Finn knew that their greatest challenge was still ahead, facing the darkness that threatened their world. Together, they stepped out of the temple, ready for the final battle that awaited them.